Hi, I'm Tori, and today I'm going to be discussing the book My Land Sings by Rudolfo Anaya. This is a collection of stories set in New Mexico. Some of them are folk stories that the author has kind of put his own spin on. I think some of them might be original, and they're just sort of like little fairy tales that come from New Mexico. So I have actually had this book for most of my life. I got it when I lived in New Mexico, and some of the stories actually take place very close to where I used to live. So I remember trying to read this book as a child, and I just had kind of a hard time getting into it. The stories in here are very dark, and I did not enjoy that. So this year I picked this book up right around Halloween and just started kind of leisurely reading my way through the stories. And when you're expecting them to be dark, it is a lot of fun. So the introduction to this book explains that a lot of the stories are based on traditional Hispanic cuentos, which is, I think, just the traditional style of folktale, and I really enjoyed it. Some of these stories are set just a couple hundred years ago, and then some of them are more like Native American myths and origin stories of the world and things like that. I will say that the darkest story in here is the second one, and that is definitely the point where I stopped reading last time. I enjoy reading fairy tales from a lot of different cultures, and it's interesting to me to see some of them try to teach high moral lessons and say, be good like these children and good things will happen to you too. Some fairy tales, like especially kind of Russian ones, seem to be much less focused on the morality and teaching a good lesson, and they just have these really interesting stories. This one is definitely not like that. This book is definitely trying to scare children into behaving. And I don't know if that is true of all stories from this region or if it is just the approach that this author chose to take, but it is definitely the do what I say or else horrible things will happen to you version of storytelling. So the illustrations in this book are very beautiful. They're done by Amy Cordova, and every story starts with its own illustration, and they're just very pretty. And then at the back of the book, there is a little glossary of Spanish words. So if any of the stories use a word that you don't understand, you can look it up in the little glossary. So I definitely had a lot more fun reading this book now than I did when I was a child. It was very fun to look at the more dark and sinister kind of approach to fairy tales.